Emma Carter woke before her alarm, the gray light of a Seattle morning slipping through the blinds, and for a long moment she lay still, listening to the distant sound of traffic and the quiet hum of her refrigerator, feeling that familiar weight press against her chest, the feeling that life was moving but she was not, that days were stacking up neatly while something inside her stayed unfinished, and as she rolled onto her side and reached for her phone, she saw the same email notification she had ignored for weeks, a reminder about a 6-week creative writing workshop starting that evening, and she almost laughed at herself because she already knew what she would do, which was nothing, because doing nothing was safe and predictable and required no courage at all. Yet as she sat up and swung her legs onto the cold floor, memories began to stir, memories of a younger Emma who filled notebooks with stories and dreams, who believed words could change things, who believed she could change too, and that younger version felt very far away now, buried under routines and responsibilities and a quiet breakup she never fully healed from, a relationship that ended politely but left her doubting her instincts and her worth. And as she moved through her small apartment making coffee and staring out at the street below, she felt the familiar tug between comfort and longing, the pull to stay inside her carefully built life and the urge to step beyond it. And when the coffee grew cold in her mug and she realized she had been standing there for 10 minutes doing nothing, something small but firm shifted inside her, a decision not born of confidence but of exhaustion from standing still. And without giving herself time to overthink, she grabbed her coat, slipped on her shoes, and left the apartment before fear could talk her out of it, and the walk to the arts center felt strangely fast, as if the city itself was urging her forward, rain misting the air, the smell of wet pavement grounding her nerves, and when she reached the building and saw the lights glowing inside, her heart pounded hard enough that she considered turning back, but then she pushed the door open and stepped inside, where warmth and low voices greeted her, and she took in the room quickly, the circle of chairs, the mix of strangers, the quiet tension of people about to share something personal, and she chose a seat near the middle, telling herself she could leave at any time. That this was not a promise, just an experiment, and it was then, as the instructor welcomed everyone and spoke about writing as an act of honesty, that Emma noticed a man sitting 2 chairs away, his posture relaxed but attentive, his expression thoughtful, and when he glanced over and offered a small, genuine smile, it caught her off guard because it felt easy, not forced or curious or judging, just kind, and she looked away quickly, embarrassed by how aware she suddenly felt of her own presence. And as introductions began and people shared why they were there, Emma listened closely, noticing how different yet similar everyone sounded, each person carrying their own quiet reason for showing up. And when it was her turn, her voice shook slightly as she said she wanted to write again, that she had missed it, and she was surprised by the gentle nods around the room, by the sense that no one expected her to explain further, and when the man beside her introduced himself as Daniel Brooks and spoke simply about wanting to try something creative after years of practical work, Emma felt that same subtle pull again, not attraction exactly, but recognition, as if they were standing on the same edge for different reasons. And as the session moved quickly into a short writing exercise, Emma found her pen moving across the page almost on its own, words flowing faster than she expected, honest and raw but controlled. And when time was called and volunteers were invited to share, she felt a sudden urge to speak, surprising herself by raising her hand, and as she read aloud, her heart raced, but the room stayed quiet, respectful, and when she finished, she saw Daniel watching her with a thoughtful expression, and in that look there was no judgment, only attention, which made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in years. And the class ended just as quickly as it began, people standing, chatting softly, the spell breaking, and as Emma gathered her things, she felt lighter, as if she had taken a deep breath after holding it for too long, and when she stepped back outside into the cool evening air, the city felt different, sharper, brighter, more alive, and she realized that she was smiling without meaning to, because for the first time in a long while, she had done something simply because it mattered to her, not because it was safe or expected. And as she walked home, replaying moments from the evening, she understood that this was not just about writing, it was about choice, about daring to step into a room where she could be known again, and she did not yet know how this decision would ripple through her life or how deeply it would change her. She only knew that something had begun, something fragile but real, and that turning back now would be harder than moving forward. Weeks passed quickly, And Tuesday evenings became the part of Emma Carter's life she looked forward to most, because the writing workshop was no longer just a class but a space where time moved faster and feelings felt clearer, and each session pushed her to write with more honesty and less fear. While the room itself grew familiar, the same chairs, the same soft lights, the same nervous energy that slowly turned into comfort, and Daniel Brooks was always there, arriving a little early, sitting in different places but somehow always close enough to notice. And at first they spoke only in small moments, short comments about prompts or shared smiles after someone read a powerful piece. But those moments slowly stretched into real conversations, the kind that begin casually and then surprise you by becoming important. And Emma learned that Daniel worked as an engineer, that his days were full of numbers and plans, but his nights belonged to music, books, and unfinished ideas. And Daniel learned that Emma edited articles for a living, that she loved shaping other people's words even while hiding her own. And these talks happened in hallways, on the sidewalk outside, sometimes over quick coffee before heading home. And with every meeting, Emma felt something shift inside her. A gentle warmth mixed with caution, because connection felt good but also dangerous, and she noticed how Daniel listened carefully, never interrupting, never rushing her thoughts, which made her feel safe in a way she wasn't used to. And during class, she found herself paying closer attention when he read his work, his stories filled with quiet longing, missed chances, and hope that refused to fully fade. And though he never explained his past, Emma sensed loss there, something unspoken but deeply felt. And one night, after a session focused on writing about fear, the group lingered longer than usual, rain tapping against the windows, and Emma and Daniel found themselves alone near the door, talking about how strange it felt to share personal words with strangers. And Daniel admitted that he almost walked out on the first night because vulnerability scared him more than failure, and Emma surprised herself by admitting the same. And in that shared confession, the space between them narrowed, not physically but emotionally, as if they were standing on the same ground. And as days passed, Emma realized the workshop was changing her beyond writing. She felt more present at work, more aware of her emotions, more willing to sit with discomfort instead of avoiding it. Yet with that growth came fear, because she could feel herself caring about Daniel, caring in a quiet but growing way, and memories of her past relationship returned, reminding her how hope could turn into disappointment, how trust could leave you exposed. And she noticed that Daniel seemed careful too, never pushing, never crossing invisible lines, as if he was also guarding something fragile. And one evening, after Daniel read a piece about someone standing at a crossroads, choosing between safety and truth, Emma felt the words hit too close to home. And when the instructor praised the story, Daniel only nodded, his eyes distant. And later, as they walked outside together, Emma asked him what the story meant, and he paused before answering, saying softly that sometimes people survive by staying the same, but they only truly live by risking change. And the way he said it made Emma wonder if he was speaking to her, or to himself, or to both of them. And as they stood under the streetlights, the city moving around them, Emma felt the weight of unspoken possibilities, the sense that something important was forming just beneath the surface. And when they parted that night, she walked home with her heart racing, aware that trying something new had opened a door she wasn't sure she was ready to walk through, but also knowing that closing it now would mean returning to the quiet loneliness she had just begun to escape. The final week of the workshop arrived faster than Emma expected, and the room that once felt like a beginning now carried the heavy feeling of something ending, because routines had formed, comfort had grown, and the thought of losing this weekly space made her chest tighten. And as people shared their last pieces, there was more emotion in the air, voices trembling, pauses stretching longer than usual. And when Daniel read his final story, it was calm but powerful, about two people walking side by side without ever saying what mattered most. And Emma felt her throat tighten because she knew that story was unfinished in the same way she felt unfinished. And when the session ended, there were smiles, handshakes, and exchanged numbers, but underneath it all was hesitation. And Emma noticed Daniel watching her from across the room as if waiting for the right moment. And when he finally approached, his expression was open but uncertain, and they talked briefly, both aware that something important needed to be said, yet neither finding the words. And they walked out together into the cool evening air, the sky dark, the streetlights reflecting off the wet pavement, and the city felt louder than usual, as if time itself was urging them forward. and Emma felt the pull to speak, to tell him that these weeks had mattered, that he had mattered, but fear stepped in quickly, reminding her of past pain, of promises that once felt safe and later broke quietly, and Daniel seemed to sense that hesitation because he slowed his steps, his voice softer as he said he was glad he came to the workshop, glad he didn't walk away like he almost had, and Emma agreed, her heart racing, and when they reached the parking lot, silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken meaning, and Emma forced a small smile and said this was probably goodbye, hating the way the word sounded, and Daniel nodded, but his eyes showed disappointment he didn't try to hide, and after a brief, careful hug that felt unfinished, they parted ways, walking in opposite directions, and Emma told herself she had done the safe thing, the smart thing, yet the moment she got home, the apartment felt emptier than before, and days turned into weeks with no messages, no accidental meetings, and though Emma returned to her normal routine, nothing felt normal anymore, because writing now stirred emotions she couldn't ignore, and Daniel's absence echoed through her thoughts, showing up in quiet moments, in half-written sentences, in songs playing on the radio, and one evening, while cleaning her desk, Emma found a folded paper inside her notebook, something she hadn't noticed before, and when she opened it, her breath caught as she read Daniel's short, thoughtful note saying he would like to keep writing together if she ever wanted to, and the realization hit her hard that he had reached out in his own careful way and she had let fear decide for her, and sitting alone in her apartment, Emma understood that trying something new wasn't a single brave moment but an ongoing choice, and that by staying silent, she had chosen safety over truth, and the regret felt heavier than the fear ever had. And as she stared at her phone, heart pounding, she knew that if she didn't act now, she would lose more than a person, she would lose the stronger version of herself she had started to become. And with trembling hands but a steady resolve, Emma opened a new message. Ready to face whatever came next, Emma sent the message before doubt could stop her. And when Daniel replied a few minutes later suggesting they meet at a quiet cafe by the water, relief washed over her, because the hardest step had already been taken. And when she arrived the next evening, the sky was clear, the city calm, and Daniel was already there, standing as soon as he saw her, surprise quickly giving way to a warm smile, and they talked easily at first, about simple things, about work and writing and how strange it felt to be sitting together outside the workshop, but soon the conversation deepened, honesty replacing hesitation, and Emma admitted that fear had stopped her from speaking sooner. That past heartbreak had taught her to stay silent even when something mattered, and Daniel listened without interrupting, then shared that he had spent years choosing safe paths, building a steady life while ignoring his emotional needs, and that meeting Emma had reminded him of parts of himself he thought he had lost, and in that quiet cafe, they didn't make promises or rush into anything, they simply chose openness, and that choice slowly changed everything, because they began meeting regularly, sometimes to write together, sometimes just to walk and talk, learning each other's rhythms, respecting boundaries, letting trust grow naturally, and Emma noticed herself becoming braver, submitting her writing to small publications, speaking up at work, allowing herself to hope without apology, while Daniel supported her quietly, celebrating her progress without trying to control it, and he changed too, taking creative risks, expressing feelings he once kept hidden, and as seasons passed, their connection deepened into a steady, thoughtful love built on understanding rather than intensity, and one evening, nearly a year after the workshop began, Emma stood by her apartment window watching the city lights flicker on, feeling grateful instead of restless, and when Daniel joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders, she realized how far she had come, not just in love but in life, because trying something new had taught her that growth requires courage, that fear doesn't disappear but loses power when faced, and that choosing honesty can transform quiet longing into real connection. And as she leaned into Daniel, the future no longer felt like something to survive, but a story still unfolding, shaped by two people who dared to step beyond safety and become more than they once believed possible.